So welcome and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today about the need, the impact, the engagement, and the savings that Quizzify health literacy services can bring to your employees. I'm Mark Delicave. I've been working with Al for about 5 years. Previously, I had worked at Willis and USI and been involved in healthcare and health insurance. And most of you probably know Al Lewis. He's recognized as one of the foremost authorities on wellness and population health. He's authored a book about wellness outcomes analysis, another book about cracking healthcare costs that was written in 2013 about centers of excellence. He wrote this with Tom Emmerich, who managed benefits at Walmart for more than a decade. And it talked about things in 2013 that are now going mainstream in progressive plans. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Al Lewis to lead us in our discussion today.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome to our Dog and Pony Show. As Mark said, you'll have plenty of opportunity to participate. First question is, hey, Butch, who are those guys? Well, we're a fairly established company now. We've actually been highlighted in Marty McCary's best-selling book. We've got clients you would have heard of, Leapfrog, Ernst & Young, Florida Power and Light, Audubon, and in the public sector, we've got the Mass Municipal Association, City of Tampa, Vermont teachers. They have the statewide teachers group, and all of our stuff, excluding some of the brand names, and all of our benefits questions, because the Harvard Medical School people don't like talking about brand names, and they're not benefits experts. All of our stuff carries the Harvard Medical School label. So let's step back a little before we get to the fun stuff, the polling and everything. Why health literacy matters? Well, for starters, social determinants of health have finally reached the forefront here. And the Healthcare Advisory Board that you may have heard of, a very well-known organization, ranked health literacy against other initiatives in social determinants of health. And mind you, we not only did not pay for this study, we had a heck of a time getting them to allow us to use it. So they have the target population here and the strength of the evidence here. And you want to be able to have something that affects the whole membership with a high amount of evidence. And lo and behold, that was where health literacy landed in the advisory board's analysis. Why else does it matter? Well, it doesn't matter how health literate you are, it's still confusing. Excuse me, it's also foundational. Unlike point solutions, every employee can benefit from knowing more, including yourselves, as you will see for yourselves as we do the polling. Healthcare is also the only line item where employees get an unlimited budget to spend as they see fit, but no training in how to spend it. And it's not just us saying this. Here are 4 recent Surgeons General and HHS secretaries. I'm not going to go through their exact quotes, except to note that 2 of them are Republicans and 2 of them are Democrats. Everybody agrees on the importance of health literacy. And savings, of course, is on everybody's mind. There are considerable savings in the near term. And as we go through this, you're going to see lots of savings opportunities. And then Mark is going to close with our ROI model so you can put it all together. In the near term, what you learn is that the more people know about health literacy, the less of other people's money, meaning yours, they spend. Health literacy equals savings. This is the VHA study done for the VHA. Mind you, once again, we did not pay for it. Frankly, we didn't even know it existed until somebody pointed it out. And it's basically the more people know, the less they spend by a considerable margin. Why is that? It's because of exactly what Quizzify teaches. Just because it's healthcare doesn't mean it's good for you. Insured Americans are far more likely to be overtreated than undertreated, and overuse is expensive and harmful. And here are 4 books and articles, cover articles about this. And no, I did not cherry pick these. There is no book that says, let's screen people more, let's test people more, let's diagnose people more, and let's give people more specialist treatment. And some of the leading names in healthcare say exactly the same thing. Crucial is the word that's used by the CDC. Now, if this is so crucial, how come healthcare is overlooked by every other vendor? There's like 3,000 vendors out there. How come we're the only ones that do it? It's because it's hard to teach unless you know how. And guess what? We know how. We turn healthcare into a trivia game. Now, I myself wrote a best-selling trivia game years ago. You can still actually find it on eBay and Amazon. And I also hosted and produced a trivia game show series in the Boston market. And there's an art to doing this. There's an art to teaching health literacy using trivia. And it's all about the experience to do it. And I've certainly had plenty of experience. I myself was on Jeopardy once. So speaking of experience, let's share the member and employee experience. It starts with the questions, but we've got a whole team at Quizzify to make that experience interesting. Now, the first thing you should know about implementation is there is no personal health information or HIPAA issues whatsoever. So getting started is absurdly easy. We just put this together for the Pittsburgh Business Group on Health as an example the other day to get started on their quizzes, and they made them all public. All you got to do is just click here, or if you're at home with your phone right now, you just point to this, which would be typical on a break room poster that would sort of, tease Quizzify a little bit. You just point to this and boom, you're in. We are the Gumby of vendors. You can access Quizzify and put Quizzify in any number of ways. Excuse me, any number of ways. And we have all sorts of stuff to help. And we can do this with all sorts of vendors. They can or have or would with all sorts of vendors and have it be as easy as any implementation you've ever had. Now, once you're in, what happens if you're an employee? Well, you typically get 10 questions a month, 12 months a year, and that varies a little bit, but that's kind of the standard. You gain the health knowledge and you make the healthier decisions. And now, and we've got this across absurd numbers of categories at this point. You can focus on categories that give you more savings by making employees wiser shoppers. You can help them focus on your benefits. A lot of people have new benefits and benefits employees don't know about. And we certainly have tons of stuff to improve well-being and lifestyle choices. So now let's open the polling. So this is from the exercise category. And the question is, what is wrong with this picture? Her legs are too bent. Her neck is too far forward. She shouldn't be doing sit-ups in the first place, or she should be going left elbow to right knee like that in order to get maximum back rotation. And while we are waiting to see what the survey says, Mark, we asked people to put Q&A in the chat, things in the chat box, Q&A, anything come in?
Yeah, one question is, how long has Quizzify been in business, and does your company have outside investors or intend to acquire new rounds of capital?
So the short answer is we've been in business for a little bit more than 6 years, and we pretty much have no need for capital, but thank you for asking. Always open. We are much more likely to trade ownership for if a large organization wants ownership, we sometimes throw in a little stock, but we don't have any need for capital. Okay, survey says, all righty. Actually, this was shockingly good. She shouldn't be doing sit-ups in the first place is correct. Planks are the new sit-ups. Sit-ups can put great strain on your back. It's probably the world's most overrated exercise. I am Exhibit A. I had back pain for 2 years, and the doctors and the physical therapists were all telling me, I got to do more sit-ups. I got to do more sit-ups. And somebody was actually a vendor of some sort, said, that's the wrong exercise. You should be doing planks. And I, in my wisdom, said, what's a plank? I started doing them. My back pain went away in about 2 weeks. All right, polling question number 2. The majority having gotten it right in polling question number 1. Suppose, like many middle-aged males, you have a swollen prostate and it won't respond to various drugs. What's the newest thing you can ask your doctor about? Watchful waiting, which is a fancy way of saying doing nothing and hoping it doesn't get worse and probably improves. Drinking more fluids to keep the urine floating. Applying steam, not by yourself. The doctor applies steam to the prostate. Or Kegel exercises. So I don't know if we have anything else that's come in. I mean, we did ask
Well,
people.
here's a question now. How does Quizify engage with factory and blue collar workers?
Well, if you go back to the break room poster that we showed, a lot of blue collar and factory workers do not have company emails. So just taking your phone and holding up to that break room poster will get you in. Having said that, a lot of factory workers, blue collar employees are part of wellness programs. They do have incentives. They do have a reason to do this. Shockingly, and frankly, we don't know why, we get about the same engagement rates, regardless of whether folks are hourly or salaried. So with that in mind, Mark, okay, we have Kegel exercises wins. This time we stumped the panel. The answer is that the doctor applies steam directly to the prostate. And this is new. This is new. And Quizify prides itself on being up to date on everything, often more than doctors are. It's an in-office therapy using only a local anesthetic. It's far less risky than other surgical procedures. And they have found that this works extremely well. Doctors are often reluctant to recommend it. I think a few still don't know about it, but frankly, they make much more money reaming out your prostate the way they used to do. But the steam, and this is now, I think, quite well established, should absolutely happen before you do anything fancier, more invasive with the prostate. All righty. Polling question number 3. What should you do about most small cavities? Fill them before they get worse, brush them away before they get worse, or tell your dentist you just want to fix them without any drilling. Now, it seems like we do have some activity in the chat box in the Q&A. So while we're waiting for the survey, what do you have?
Is Quizify available in Spanish?
Yes, it is. We have on retainer, we have somebody whose expertise is Spanish health literacy. I will tell you that it does cost extra to put it in Spanish, but it's just a pass through on our part. And we don't just use Google Translate. We literally use an expert in this category. Okay, survey says, all right. I think some people read the announcement for this webinar very carefully, because yes, that is the answer. Nobody ever gets it right. So congratulations to this group. The answer is you do want to tell the dentist to fix them without drilling. It's called silver diamine fluoride, and it does fix what we call non-large cavities better than fillings. And the way it works is the dentist puts a drop of this SDF on what's known as a microbrush, and they brush it right on the cavity there, and it freezes the cavity in place. It kills the bacteria and it keeps it from spreading. And note that there's healthy enamel here, and they don't have to actually drill out the healthy enamel. It does get some PR occasionally, but the chances are that your dentist has not told you about it, because if every dentist used silver diamine fluoride where it is indicated, the income of the entire dental industry would fall 20%, which is to say the spending of the entire employer population would fall by 20% as well. This is the only dental treatment to receive breakthrough therapy status from the FDA. And my favorite one, I won't go through all these, is that the American Association of Pediatric Dentistry requires dentists, members of the AAPD, to discuss SDF with the parents. It doesn't say they have to recommend it, it just says they have to discuss it. And I'm just going to ask you, if you had kids, or this has been true for years now, did your pediatric dentist say anything? And the answer is no. And speaking of SDF, remember those old Hair Club for Men ads where Cy Sperling would say, I'm not just the president of the Hair Club for Men, and he'd take off his toupee and say, I'm also a client. Well, guess what? I'm also a client of SDF. This is my own EOB. And I had to convince the dentist to do SDF because they don't like to do it. I'm basically taking money out of my dentist's pocket. They could bill for $39.92 instead of $160. My cavities or fillings are covered at 50%. So I say $40. My wife's employer saved $80, and I never even got a thank you note. Now, to put this in perspective, and by the way, it took 2 minutes. I was back at work. It was an 11 o'clock appointment. I was back at work at 11:30, and I wasn't drooling like this. I was just, no one could even tell I'd been to the dentist. So for every 1,000 people you cover, there are 300 cavities per year. If you, like me, this is gross. This would be assuming you covered 100%. Save $120 on just a third of those cavities, you would pay for all of Quizzify. Not to mention the benefits to the family and reduce stress and lost work time. And let's look at an example.
Hi, this is Matt Hobler, consultant with Johnson Financial Group here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And not only do I really appreciate the education that Quizzify provides to our customers and their families and their employees, but I've also been able to take advantage of it myself as a father because recently my son here was told that he had to have his tooth either crowned or extracted entirely. And as tough as he looks, he's not a big fan of being at the dentist. Do you like the dentist? No, not at all. So he was kind of going crazy in the chair. And I actually asked, because I've recently learned about silver diamine fluoride from Quizzify, and I actually asked the dentist, would silver diamine fluoride work in this situation? And he actually froze for a second and said, that's actually a good idea. So long story short, we ended up, instead of having a tooth crowned or extracted at a cost of over $1,000 and a lot of stress and discomfort, we ended up having a couple treatments of silver diamine fluoride at $25 a piece. And that tooth is still in place today. So saved us a lot of time, a lot of stress. So just like to thank Quizzify for everything they've done. And hopefully they can help others just like they've helped me.
So you heard it. And the other thing I would note is this kid is the Mikey of dentists, okay? How can you possibly deprive your employees of something like this? You've seen it for yourself now. The way you do this is it's actually quite simple. There are 2 codes that cover SDF right here. You can either cover them, or if it's too late to cover them, or you're fully insured or whatever, you just put points into the incentive program for getting SDF, and then it becomes our job to educate members about it. It's not just one question. We actually have a whole quiz on it. And we don't actually ask that quiz early on because we need to build trust with employees with other questions like the 2 that you saw before, because this one is so simply not believable that that we'd have to develop this trust level before we even get into it. And we can also help you create a list of local dentists who will gladly use SDF without being prompted. You can go online, you can just basically find them all over the country. And somebody asked us, what about Santa Monica? Do you have a list in Santa Monica? Well, we now know the folks at the SDF company. So we just asked them, guy sends me 4 dentists in Santa Monica. It's that simple. Question number 4. How does the radiation in CAT scan compare to the radiation X-ray? I see the chat box and the Q&A lighting up again. So Mark, while we're waiting, what do we have?
Oh, is Quizzify available outside the US?
Yes, it is. The curriculum is different. There's not much overutilization outside the US, but there's an awful lot of, the level of understanding of the Western diet is shockingly even lower than it is in the US. So we tend to do a lot more sort of nutrition and lifestyle questions. All right.
And with 1,800 questions, we now have the material that we can really address that very nicely.
Yeah, and Mark, to your point, we could literally ask 10 years of questions without an overlap just in lifestyle. So we have about 1,200 of those are lifestyle based. So what do we have? We have, okay, so people have been reading their, people did read the little lead in to this webinar because yes, it is 50 to 1,000 times more is in fact the answer. Americans are addicted to unnecessary CAT scans. This is not us talking. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association. This is a list of countries, developed countries in the OECD by the number of CAT scans they have. And just to show you what the economics of Quizzify look like, see that tiny little arrow there and that red line? if you can reduce the number of CAT scans just a third of the way to Luxembourg, a third of the way between us and the number 2 country, that pays for all of Quizzify. If you're paying $1,000 a scan on average, that's $12,000. That pays for all of Quizzify. And watch how easy it is to avoid unnecessary scans. And sometimes, as you saw before, we get people to share their experiences. And honestly, usually these are administrators because number one, patients tend to be shyer about going online, although that Mikey was not. And number two, our administrators are also users for the most part. They tend to really like Quizzify.
Hi, I'm Jane Schmitz from the Massachusetts Municipal Association. We've been using Quizzify with our members for several years now, and they really love learning how to save on healthcare and how to avoid unnecessary care. Which brings me to my short but salient story. I was experiencing some pain in my jaw that was getting worse. My dentist said we'd need to do a CAT scan to see what's going on. Now, I had just taken the quiz that discussed the amount of radiation in a CAT scan, which I learned is a lot, and this worried me. I asked both my dentist and the x-ray person if they could verify this, and they had no idea how much radiation was in a CAT scan. So this is when I said, I think I'm gonna wait and see if it gets better on its own, which I did, and it did get better, and I was able to avoid getting that scan and all that unnecessary radiation. So thank you, Quizzify.
So polling question number 5, and once again, I do see this, both the chat box and the Q&A lighting up, so there should be some cool stuff. What is true about long-term use of heartburn drugs such as Prilosec, Nexium, and Prevacid, which are, the major heartburn drugs? You should take them on a daily basis for them to continue working. Long-term use can lead to flatulence. Suspected long-term effects not listed on the label include heart attacks, kidney problems, and fractures, or all of the above. And Mark, while we're taking the survey, what do we have?
This question is about using incentives and maybe including Quizzify in a traditional wellness program. Can we use incentives, and can Quizzify track them?
Yes, they're very easy to track. Because remember, we don't have any HIPAA issues. We know exactly who's taking which quizzes, whether they're completing them, and usually the incentive should be to complete them as opposed to trying to get some high score, because then when people miss questions, they get annoyed. Whereas if they miss them and all they got to do is complete the quiz, they then have to get to the right answer on a given question before they go on, but they don't feel tricked or annoyed when they get the wrong answer. And the second question is, yes, this absolutely can be part of a wellness program. Not only that, but there are many people who, no matter how good the wellness program is, won't participate because you have to give up personal health information, who may be perfectly happy to do Quizzify because there's no PHI involved. So the short answer to both answers is yes. And what do we have here, Mark? Okay, so this time there's a tie, and the tie goes to suspected long-term events, not adverse events not listed on the label is indeed the correct answer. So for those of you who said all of the above, this is absolutely the wrong answer. I did notice that only a couple people said that one, which means that because it's all of the above, this one can't be right. Long-term use can lead to flatulence. You may just have to keep blaming the dog for that. And you might say, how come these long-term effects are not listed on the label? Well, the answer is quite simple. This is not the fault of the pharmaceutical company. The label is actually quite clear. It says, this product is to be used once a day, every day for 14 days. Then ... 14-day course of treatment in bold. But the thing is, you get relief. So you keep going. And in the case of one of our users, in fact, they did have one of these things happen. This, as you can tell, is not one of our administrators.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Pete. I'm just telling a little story here about, I went for a massage, and when the lady started on my back, all of a sudden she popped a rib. I felt a rib break. And I wasn't aware but I wasn't told this, but I am a Prirosec customer because of my acid reflux. And I found out through Quizzify that you really shouldn't be taking this Prirosec for, more than 2 weeks at a time, which I've never learned before. I'm very grateful that I learned that through Quizzify. And speaking with my
so he switched and has not broken any more ribs that we're aware of. There are much safer ways to address heartburn, and we have whole quizzes on heartburn, which is a very prevalent ailment, and it's also, we would almost call it voluntary because it's so easily preventable for most people. One is that you put your bed on an incline like this, and this is what I did. I used to be on those drugs, and I had no idea about the long-term impact till I started doing Quizzify. Or if you have one of those adjustable beds, this would be too high. If you make it too great an angle like that, you're smushing your stomach, and it's actually easier for the stomach acid to get into your esophagus. You want to use something like that, so you're just enough so that the stomach acid does not go into your esophagus. So now you've seen the way this works. Let's bring this knowledge into a clinical visit and see how it works. And also, as an added bonus, see how it enhances health equity. Many of you folks joined this webinar when we talked about health equity, and now is your chance to see how it works. So you've got the learnings. The second part of Quizzify is what we is called Quizzify to Go. It typically comes on a phone or other device, and it facilitates medical visits, both ER, and we'll get to that in a minute, and also doctor visits using what we call the Doctor Visit Prep Kit. Now, the Doctor Visit Prep Kit, for 140 different things, and I'm going to link to it right now, for 140 different reasons to go to the doctor, we have questions to ask the doctor, things you need to do to prepare, links to more information. And as you see, we have calendaring features and links to Quizzify quizzes. And so let's just use a couple of examples. You just put a keyword in here, and we got, as you can see, this is just the A's, tons of keywords that you can put in. But since we've talked about a couple, let's do back pain. And back pain will bring you to kidney stones if it's sharp mid-back pain, low back pain for first visit, upper mid-back pain, low back pain second visit, and neck ache. And then in each of these examples, number one, you can see. So you have the, oh, by the way, those of you who are not familiar with kidney stones, you don't limit your calcium intake, as it turns out. You actually want more calcium. It's sodium that causes kidney stones. And we've got all sorts of links on this stuff, but presumably it's a little too late for the one you have now. So these are the questions you would ask about the one you have now. And then this, of course, assumes you don't go to the emergency room, and we'll get to the emergency stuff in a second. So you could add this to your calendar, just like this. So this assumes the visit is tomorrow. It's got all that information right on the calendar. You can also obviously change the visit date. And you can email a friend. You can put it right in your Apple Wallet. And within a few weeks, you'll be able to do Google Play with it as well. And in many of these cases, not all of them, there's quizzes that you can, oh, I have to log in. There's quizzes that you can take to, there's quizzes that you can take for these things that, like, this would take you right to your back quiz. So let's get out of that and get back to the, what did I do here? Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can essentially, you can do this with any category, any keyword, and if we don't have it covered, you just ask us. We will write the questions, we'll write the quiz, we'll send it to Harvard for review and get it back. Now, health equity. It has been found that disadvantaged groups get shorter clinical visits. Now, we can't solve that. On the other hand, we don't charge that much. But if in fact you or your employee takes the agenda into their own hands and makes sure that their things are covered, they're likely to get a fuller visit and not have the doctor checking their watch and try to throw them out and not address the issues that they should be addressing. But that's only the slightest part of the health equity here. The immediate savings opportunity in Quizzify to go is reducing the ER cost, which is a huge health equity issue, using what we call the ER sticker shock prevent consent. It's 29 words, and some of you have probably already heard of this because it's been we've been getting a lot of press on it. And these are the 29 words that you write in. Superseding other consents, I consent to responsibility, including insurance, for up to 2 times Medicare, following receipt of an itemized bill for appropriate treatment coded at the correct level. And these are the instructions. Know your rights. Ask the provider to print out the consent form, cross out the consent and write in these 29 words. Take a picture. They are then aware that they must treat you the same as if you signed their consent. In the unlikely event that they object, which never happens, by the way, we do have a 24/7 number to explain the law to them. Oops. And when you leave, remind them you should be billed this way, because in fact, this does happen sometimes. It says treat the final bill like any other healthcare bill, but if it's over 1,000, despite following these steps, call us first and we will help with the bill, because in fact, this does happen sometimes. And that's why it's important to take a picture and remind. Now you might say, how on earth are people supposed to remember this? Well, that's easy. They don't have to remember it. They just add it to their, oh, this is a screenshot. So let me just get out of this right here. They just add it to their Apple Wallet like this, and soon their Google Play. And when you add it to your Apple Wallet, I'm in the Boston area. These are the 10 closest emergency rooms to where I live. And if I go to any one of them, this will pop up when I get within about 50 feet of the door. So I just save these. And then if I end up in the ER, it pops up, the consent pops right up, boom, 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 boom. And the instructions, it says, look for the ellipsis or the I button, to the I button, and you have the instructions right there. So you do not have to remember any of this stuff in order for it to work. So lower cost is truly the ultimate health equity solution. Think of all the things you do for health equity. Not one of them right now involves simply keeping the cost lower for everybody at no expense to you, which is what this is all about. And emergency medical care is the leading cause of medical debt, collections. 137 million people report problems paying their bills, and half Americans don't have enough savings for emergencies. So why not reduce the cost of emergencies? That's a very simple question, and we have the answer. We can actually guarantee it. We can guarantee to keep visits under 1,000. Now, in fact, not every visit will be under 1,000, and frankly, our guarantee costs a little bit of money because of that, but most visits will be under 1,000. And in fact, if we want to guarantee the average visit under 1,000, that's quite inexpensive. There have been all sorts of articles on this. You'll recognize these names: New York Times, Marty McCary, Marshall Allen, Jessica Brooks, if you happen to be in Pittsburgh. And here are some examples of these consents. Written in. All you got to do is just look at your phone. Remember, they pop up. More consents. So they are right there. They're right there. And this is what my own insurance card looks like. You can actually put these consents. We have tape for our clients. You can put them right on your card, or if you use a TPA, you can get the TPA to put it on your card. And guess what? We have somebody on video to talk about their experience.
Hi there, my name is Emma Fox. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Partner in ePowered Benefits, and I wanted to share a quick success story with you. In this industry, it doesn't happen all that often, but back in July, I had to take my 15-year-old daughter to the emergency room for chest pains after ruling out all possible ailments in urgent care. Thankfully, during a chaotic check-in procedure, I remembered to find that financial consent that was buried very deep in the consent to care. I crossed it out and I wrote, I consent to pay up to 200% of Medicare for treatment, took a few pictures of it for my records, and went on with an extensive 5-hour ER visit to rule out everything that could possibly be wrong with my daughter. And thankfully, she ended up with a clean bill of health. 2 weeks later, we received a bill. The first surprise, the unpleasant one, was that the hospital had significantly upcoded CPT code 99285, which is a fairly severe case of 3-pronged comprehensive high severity ER requiring collaboration with multiple doctors. Seems a little unnecessary, but the nicer surprise was that the bill shows that they billed $683 for the visit. I got a discount since I'm a self-pay patient, so my entire 5.5-hour ER visit for my daughter will come in at $478.10 using the prevent consent.
Hi.
So you've seen it
Jane
with.
Schmitz from the
Oops.
Massachusetts
Okay, Jane, we
Municipal
love you, but
Association.
hang on a
We've
sec.
been
I gotta
using
just
Quizzify with
hang on a sec.
our
What did I
members for
just do
several
here?
years now.
There we go. All right. So you've seen it with your own eyes. And remember, before we talked about how few cavities you need to treat with SDF, how few scans you need to employees to stop demanding in order to pay for all of Quizzify. Same thing is true here. You can pay for all of Quizzify by getting 8% of your ER visits to use the consent. And that assumes that you're not a large employer and you're paying $12 a year. 150 visits per 1,000, it's really more like 160. And honestly, the savings should be more than 1,000. So this is quite conservative. So to wrap up, this is how we reach almost everyone with just these examples. Cavities, I mean, these are numbers that are huge in incidence per 1,000. You compare these to, say, diabetes, where you have, I don't know, 50 diabetics, identifiable diabetics per 1,000, maybe 60 or 70, but only one is going to the hospital in a given year. So it's very tough to save money that way. And yet we do. We have a whole curriculum on ways to improve lifestyle, starting with all the things you can buy in the store. They're just complete junk disguised as health food. So, we should have done a polling question on this, because I think most people have fed these to their kids on occasion, thinking that these are healthy because cranberries are quote unquote superfood. Well, they were a superfood before but they're so bitter by the time you get done sweetening. This has become 70% sugar and mostly added sugar. And then you've probably heard that dark chocolate is a superfood. Well, dark chocolate is a superfood if you eat it in the raw form. And then you go to the store and you try to find it in the raw form. Well, newsflash, it's not available raw because nobody will buy it because it tastes horrible. You have to sweeten it with quite a bit of sugar to get it to taste good. And the things that really get our dander up are these quote unquote healthy cereals, where this one has a few antioxidants in it, which, we could talk about antioxidants. They're very overrated. But somehow people think that I get a few antioxidants, it doesn't matter if I get an absurd amount of sugar to sweeten the cereal. And I will also tell you that there are no studies, zero, not a single one, that say that Honey Nut Cheerios can lower cholesterol. Meanwhile, they've got 9 times the sugar of regular Cheerios, and they outsell regular Cheerios about 2 to 1. Regular Cheerios being about as good a cold cereal as you're going to find anywhere, by the way. So the final polling question is, did you learn something useful in the last 45 minutes? And Mark, once again, I see things in the chat box.
Yeah, this question is can you buy a specific component of Quizzify? We're a hospital system and we don't need an ER prevent consent. Can we buy classic Quizzify, the quizzes and the doctor prep kits and leave out the ER prevent consent? Is that possible?
Yes, you can basically customize it however you like. We have several accounts that leave out the ER prevent consent because they don't want to upset the hospitals. So that would be a perfect example of something that people leave out, but yes. So did you learn something useful? Yes. Okay, let's get a screenshot of that, okay? Because this happens every single time, every single time. Of course you learn something useful. And guess what? Your employees will too. Imagine how much they're going to learn and save in a year of quizzes, prep kits, and ER consents. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mark. We talked about some of the savings, and he's going to go through the ROI model in a little bit more detail. And then we'll go back to engagement. And then stay tuned for the dramatic conclusion. Mark?
Thanks, Al. Let me just bring up the screen so I have it here when we get to it. All right. Before we dive into the ROI, I'd like to talk about the outright cost of Quizzify, because we believe Quizzify is inexpensive. It's $12 an employee for groups of 1,000 or $12,000 a year. And many employers will include domestic partners because they often make the healthcare decisions. So as we all know, the average cost of health insurance for families is about $20,000 per year. So an extra $12 to $24, if you include a spouse, is literally a drop in the bucket. So if you don't have a wellness program right now and you're considering adding something to benefit your employees in the realm of wellness and population health, Quizzify is really an interesting solution to consider that works for everyone. Now, our pricing does scale lower for larger groups, and it scales a bit higher for groups under 1,000, but in most cases, it's still very affordable. Now what you're looking at on the screen here is our ROI calculator, and this is right on our website. You can get to it on our homepage in the More section, and it is open and it's free to use. As you see here, it's certified by the Validation Institute, and we have videos for each of the sections of this. And we put in our own assumptions as to where the savings can be in terms of claim costs and the periodicity of different procedures. Let's start with cavities. Now, the Consolidated Appropriations Act empowers employers to get their claims data and actually use real numbers now. I know a lot of you out there have had struggles getting hold of your actual claims data, and hopefully that will begin to fade. And that's what we've been hearing as we talk to different employer groups. The numbers we put in here are footnoted, and we've researched them pretty well. So as Al was mentioning before, in a group of 1,000, there's about 300 cavities a year. And with a small 10% reduction here, you're starting to pay for Quizzify. Now, this is a group of 1,000, so the cost of Quizzify is $12,000. So there's $3,000 in cost savings. That's both employers and employees. If we go to ER billing, the savings realized is slightly greater. And as you see here, incidents of 150 per 1,000, we put in a cost number, a success rate of 10% of the group actually using the prevent consent when they go to the ER. And that brings you a savings that actually is more than the cost of Quizzify. And that the total ROI on Quizzify is up at the top. So you can see how that changes as you change each component. And the last component I'll talk about here is the scans. And scans are really relevant in the sense that I live in an area where hospital systems have bought up doctor practices, and sometimes you really get funneled into doing more of these than might be appropriate. And we never play doctor, and we just empower people to ask the right questions. So when you need a scan, you're getting an appropriate one. And in this case, you can see, and we know that in the US, we're doing double the amount of other developed countries without better results. So there is reason to ask right now. And as you can see here, you can put in the cost of your scans, whether it be the CTs or the MRIs, the events per 1,000, and then these small reductions move the needle very significantly in terms of costs. In this case, it's double the cost of Quizzify in the savings just from the scans category. So that's our ER calculator. Please feel free to use it and reach out to us with any kind of questions. Now, I'd like to make one comment here about better health equity. As employers out there, you're always striving to teach your employees about the benefits you have. But as we all know, there's still a ton of stress when you go out to interact with the healthcare marketplace. It's intimidating, stressful. And with the education that we bring to employees, it really does move the needle towards better health equity. And I just wanted to emphasize a couple of the points that Al made, because after using Quizzify for 6 months to a year, a good portion of your employees will know when they go to the dentist, there is a painless, less expensive, less invasive way, a less time-consuming way to fill cavities. And they're empowered when they go into the medical marketplace to ask the right questions. And therefore, they're going to get more appropriate scans. And inevitably, they'll get less of them as well because we're doing so many extra inappropriate ones right now. And they'll get more appropriate surgeries as well. And finally, when they go to the ER, the people that use our prevent consent are going to be able to operate and go to the ER with the fear of getting that surprise bill that could really damage their family finances. So that's my comment about health equity. And now Al Lewis is going to wrap by showing you how effectively Quizzify engages with employees.
Okay, Mark, before I do, speaking of engaging, the chat box has been engaging with us quite a bit here. So let me see while you were doing that. What's come in? Isn't the response to these new treatments to raise the cost of the better procedures to combat income loss? That's a little beyond our pay grade. Those things are set according to what's known as resource-based relative value units by people who do this for a living. If you take the example of the SDF, the process takes 2 minutes. The amount of the actual drop that's used costs about $1 for the dentist. So in 2 minutes with $1, they're billing $39. So that's a pretty good number. The next question is, yes, there's a webinar that can be shared. Are there components of Quizzify that deal with educating consumers about how to navigate users and maximize their health benefits? Yes, those tend to be custom because everybody's health plan is different. But we have what we call shell questions on most benefits that you can imagine that can easily be customized. And then next question is, it is $12 a year or less unless you're quite small. Do you have consultants, brokers, or insurance companies who pay for this service as a value add? Yes, not as many as we would like, but we do. So I think we've caught up on the chat box now. And so now let's close with engagement and then our dramatic conclusion. So
Al, you got to share your screen again.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I completely spaced on that, which is too bad because it's a good slide. Okay, let me just go to the Zoom and share screen. Okay.
There's a question that came in. Do we educate on health insurance terminology? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the difference between copay and co-insurance?
Understanding
what an EAP is, that kind of thing. Yes, we do.
Yes, we have EAP. I think our choices are employee assistance plan, the Elvis Aaron Presley diet consisting of peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and a few other things. So yes, we have a whole quiz on EAP, another quiz on mental health resources generally. So we are an engagement tool, not just a content tool. We are two tools in one. And you don't have to take our word for any of this because Quizzify customers just swept all the engagement awards at the Healthcare Innovation Congress that just took place. These are the winners. There are 3 categories in engagement because there were enough entries to have 3 categories. The Mass Municipal Association, you heard somebody there. The Vermont Education Health Initiative, which is all the teachers in the state, and the National Audubon Society. So they all won. By the way, the reason this guy's face is crossed out is only because I thought I should get permission for everybody to use their likenesses here, even though they were already on LinkedIn. And I just didn't get to this guy in time because, frankly, it was Mark's idea and I didn't think of it. And he just mentioned it this morning. And once again, you have to take our word for this because we are the only vendor that when we go to a conference, we don't have to pay. We don't have to pay. We are the entertainment. We get paid, or normally we get a booth plus expenses or something like that. But we generally get paid to provide these trivia contests to large groups. So you can check the engagement box off. We actually guarantee engagement. We can go into that separately, individually. And now the dramatic conclusion, which is You've seen the ROI, you've seen the engagement, you've seen the health equity, you've seen the social determinants of health. But what I would leave you with is not how much you're going to save or anything that it's you're going to find yourself with a large number of very happy employees. So, Mark, unless we have any other questions, I think actually we now are able to do this in 51 minutes because we're so, we're leaving out all the, we know what we're doing here and can do it.
Yeah, and well, we have one question about, do we have a sales presentation that someone's asking if they can provide that to an employer group, and the answer is yes, we have a one-pager. We have a video on our homepage, which is kind of a good 12-minute video of all about what we kind of talked about today in summary. And Al and I are always available. We usually get on with an advisor and an employer to do something similar to what you saw today, so that an employer can evaluate whether or not Quizzify makes sense for them. And Al, another question that came in is, what percentage of users that play Quizzify every month will actually complete the quiz once they start?
Okay, so that's, am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
All right, so let me, an example is worth 1,000. And I'm going to show you, to be honest, a very good example, and one that we're allowed to show, but it's not so much better than everybody else's here. This is the Massachusetts Municipal Association. That for some reason my computer, oh, here we go. All right, so our quiz completion rate is usually upwards of about 92 or 93%. In this particular case, and we do tend to do better, this group is half teachers. We do tend to do better with teachers than average, but this means that out of every 50 people who start a quiz, 49 of them will complete it. And then the other statistic I would draw your attention to is our power user rate, which is the number of people who, you're giving out incentive for this stuff sometimes, and some people are going to be racing through it to get the incentive. The power user rate are people who either repeat the quiz or they click through on one of the links, neither of which involves any incentive in any of our clients. It's just because people want to learn more. So I think that's the answer to the question. Okie dokie then. So if you have any other questions, just send them to us separately. And we thank everybody for sticking, well, almost everybody for sticking with us to the end. And we'll see you at another webinar. I'm sure we'll talk to you in between. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye now.